Well, the title of my presentation this afternoon is Bring Your A Game. And if you're familiar with that phrase, bring your A game, it really means bring the best that you have to offer to whatever situation you're involved with. And there really was a method to my madness in starting with 1980s trivia. In the 1980s, I was in my late teens and my early 20s, which puts me right smack in the middle of my 40s, as you can imagine. We have, Chris and I, my husband and I, we have several nieces and nephews in that age range now, in the late teens to early 20s. And I often look at them and I think, what a vibrant group of individuals. They have so much zest for life at that age. They have all these goals and plans and dreams, and they're constantly learning new things and doing new things. And it's just a really exciting time in their life. And I've often thought, you know, the further we get away from that and the more we get settled into the routine of home life and household responsibilities and full-time job and paying bills and all of that, how hard it is to keep that zest for life, that enthusiasm going. Even Albert Schweitzer, and you'll see the quote over there on the screen, by all accounts, Albert Schweitzer was an incredibly dynamic individual. He not only was a world-renowned musician, he was a medical doctor, he started a hospital in Africa, he was an author, he was a Nobel Peace Prize winner. Even he, with all the dynamic things going on in his life, said that at times it's hard to keep that inner fire of enthusiasm lit. He says in this quote, "In everyone's life, at one time or another, our inner fire goes out. It is then burst into flames by an encounter with another human being. We should all be thankful for those people who rekindle the inner spirit." And when I think of the theme that you've been having this week at your conference, Changing Lives Beyond Expectations, and the work that you do as care providers for the elderly, which is such a needy, vulnerable population, I can't think of anyone who needs more to bring their A game on a regular basis to their work life and to your home life. So what I'm hoping to provide in the next hour or so is some strategies for you, 8 specific strategies for rekindling that spirit and bringing your A game to every aspect of your life. So that's where we're starting. We're going to start with number 1, which is to know that your attitude is contagious and affects every aspect of your life. I want you to imagine I just remember back to this morning when your alarm clock went off. And I want you to remember back, okay, your alarm clock went off, you probably had to get some coffee, hop out of bed, stumble out of bed. You had to go through and take a shower and get your breakfast, and maybe you stayed at a hotel here and you had a short drive, or maybe you had a long drive to get here. But what I want you to think about, you've gone through the day so far, I want you to think in your head, what has your mood been so far today? As a matter of fact, if you had to rate your mood so far today, what rating would you give to your mood? Now I'm going to give you a little scale to help. If you had to rate your mood on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being best, your mood so far today, what rating would you give it? And I'm going to ask you to raise your hand in a minute to tell me what your mood's been like. But I have a few cards to help you out here. In a minute, if you raise your hand and say your mood has been a 10 so far today, essentially what you're saying is, I have been an absolute delight to be around today. Okay? Hey, it's too early to raise your hands over there. Then we're going to go down, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. If you give yourself a 5, essentially you're saying, you know, I've been a so-so person to be around today. And then we're going to go down from there to 4, 3, 2, 1. If you give yourself a 1, essentially you're saying, I have been a genuine pain in the behind so far today. Okay? Are you ready? All right, let's hear it. Do we have any 10s? You've been an absolute... Okay, should we have the other people at the table attest to that? All right, do we have any 9s? 9s. 8s. Lots of 8s, 7s? 6s? Do we have any 5s? 4s? 3s? 2s? Do we have any 1s? All right. Kathy, no. Is there anyone you'd like to nominate for a 1? Oh no, I'm kidding. I've had people say, you know, I just want to take this back to work with me. Well, I want to share with you a couple of mood studies that have been conducted that I think are very interesting. The first one I like to refer to as the 3 in a circle study. And it's a very simple study that has been conducted time and time again. And each time they duplicate or replicate the study, they get the exact same results. Very simple study. What they do is they take 3 people who are absolute strangers and they put them in a room together in a circle facing one another for 2 minutes, and they have to stay silent. Now that's a study. It's very simple. 3 people in a circle facing one another for 2 minutes of silence, and that's a study. Now what the researchers do is prior to going into that study, they interview the people one-on-one. And they ask them, so what's your mood like this morning? And then after they sit in the circle, they ask them again, so what's your mood like now? Now what they find every time they do that study, they found that the person in the trio who's the most emotionally expressive, and again, they may not speak. So I'm talking about the person who's either sitting there doing this number, or the person who's smiling and looking happy, like you ladies up here, so delightful, that their mood is literally transmitted to the other 2. And they leave the study with the same mood that that person went into the study with. Isn't that interesting? Just think about that when you arrive at work in the morning ready to spread your little mood around to everybody. The second one was conducted by Yale School of Management. And what Yale School of Management did is they put a number of business people together in a boardroom for 2 days, and they gave them a number of agenda items to discuss. Now, what the people in the room did not realize was that one of the people in the room was a plant. And by that I mean Yale School of Management had actually hired a professional actor. And they told that actor, for part of the 2 days when you're in the boardroom, we want you to be, really pleasant, really easy to get along with. We want you to be flexible, willing to negotiate, easy to get along with, really just a good old person all the way around. For other parts of the 2 days, we want you to be a little bit more difficult, a little bit inflexible, a little bit less willing to negotiate, maybe even a little bit irritable, a little bit moody. And then the researchers observed. And what they found, sorry about that, what they found was not only through subjective measurements of the general feel of the room, was it tense or was it upbeat, but also through objective measurements of how much the group was able to accomplish at different points during those 2 days. They found that this one person who was not even a leader within the group, the one person was able to affect the whole group. Not only the general feel of the room, but how much that group was able to accomplish. How many of you are in leadership positions? If you are, I want you to think about how much more your mood affects those people when you arrive for a staff meeting or whatever, and you have your mood ready to spread out amongst them. I read a book several years ago, and it was a little new age, it was a little out there, and it said that every time that you have an encounter with someone, you talk with them or whatever during the day, that there's a flow of energy, an exchange of energy. Either I'm giving you energy or you're taking energy from me. And the book was a little out there. It said that you could actually see the flow of energy between the 2 people. Okay, so it was a little out there, a little too far for me. But I think we can all relate to this extent. I think we all know there are certain people in our lives, when we're around them, we just feel energized. We feel good, we feel positive, we feel upbeat, feel good about ourselves, we're having fun, we're having a good time. There's other people, when we're around them in our life, it's like they just suck the life right out of us. The question I want you to ask yourself right now, is, back to that one, the one I want to ask yourself right now is, how would people describe you? Would you say that you are one of these people who energizes people and makes them feel good and helps them have a better day? Or are you one of these people who's a little more difficult, who sucks the life right out of them? I really want you to think about that. What would your reputation be? The reality is that attitude affects everything in your life. For instance, relationships. Studies tell us that if you put 2 people in a marital relationship who are both negative people, the chances of that marriage succeeding are incredibly slim compared to if you put 2 positive people together in a marriage, or even one positive and one negative. That negativity over time takes its toll on relationships. Career. I could cite study after study of what employers are looking for in new hires and in people to promote within their workplace. Attitude is at or near the top of the list every time. And many times it's more important than the person's education and their experience. Success as a whole, a number of studies have been done of athletes that tell us that if you take 2 athletes who are at a similar ability level, natural skill level, natural talent level, but one of them happens to have a more positive attitude, one happens to have a more negative attitude, The one with the more positive attitude will consistently outperform the other one. They will consistently perform above his or her natural ability levels. Creativity. I don't know if you have to do any creative problem solving at work, but studies tell us now that if you have to do a task involving creative thinking, you will do better on that task if you think happy, positive thoughts first. For instance, they've done a cute little study of 4-year-olds, and they put them in the room and they give them a little creative problem-solving task to do. But first they say to them, you know, Johnny, I just want you to sit there and think of something that makes you so happy that you could just jump out of your chair right now. And then they have them take the test. And they find that those kids do better on that test involving creativity if they purposefully think those happy thoughts first. Happiness. Did you know a whole new field was added to psychology 11 years ago? In 1998, when Dr. Martin Seligman joined the American Psychological Association, they actually added on a whole new branch of psychology called positive psychology. In the past, psychology had been concerned with, okay, we take a, quote, abnormal person here and try to get them up to being, you know, quote, normal, if there is such a thing. Well, this new field said, what if we take those of us who are presumably normal and try to get them to really maximize their joy, their happiness, and success in life? So over the last 11 years, numerous research studies have been conducted on what makes people happy. One of the most commonly accepted statistics from those studies is that they believe that about 40% of our happiness is within our control. If you think of it as a large pie, about 40% of your happiness in life is within your control. About 60% is not. In other words, there's certain circumstances that happen to you that you cannot control. As well, you may have a certain genetic predisposition to being a happier person or a more down type of person. But 40% is. And it's primarily the way you react when negative or irritating things happen to you, which they will. And I'll be talking more about that in a minute.